What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Sector for Nerds, and welcome back to another episode of Star Wars The Clone Wars Retro Discussions. Today we're going to be talking about Season 5, Episode 15, Shades of Reason. I can't wait to talk with you guys about this one today because this episode is definitely a top 10 episode in this show. This one's so good. This episode was directed by Bosco and written by Chris Collins. The cookie for this episode: alliances can stall true intentions. Now, before we begin, you guys, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Plenty of great content every single week, nothing that you guys want to miss out on. Sometime starting this fall, me and my friend DJ are going to be starting a podcast here on the channel, so make sure you guys are staying tuned for that. There's also a new thing now that I'm seeing on YouTube called Hype, where like you click on a video and you like scroll to a certain section or whatever in the video. I guess hypes up small content creators or whatever. It gives them like a bonus or whatever to help push their videos out there. So I guess if you guys could, click the hype button as well, that would be greatly appreciated, especially if it's something that's supposed to do wonders for my channel. It'd be really appreciated. Okay, now that we've gotten all the pleasantries aside, intro guy, let the people know what's going down in this episode. Villainy swells. With an army of the galaxy's most vicious criminals, Darth Maul and Savage Opress conspire with Pre Vizsla and the Death Watch to topple Duchess Satine, ruler of Mandalore. While the conspirators prepare to attack the Mandalorian capital Sindari from a base on Zanbar, the fate of 2,000 other neutral systems is under threat as Darth Maul moves closer to establishing a vast criminal empire. Thank you, intro guy. I want to start out by saying this, you guys. I feel like with all of the best episodes of the Clone Wars and of Rebels, I always hear Dave Filoni, like whether it's in interviews or behind the scenes and stuff, like always trying to figure out, man, like how are we going to do all this in 22 minutes? Like that's the stuff that goes through his mind with some of these big episodes where there's a lot going on. And somehow every single time when it seems like, their backs are against the wall over there, they always manage to pull it off. And by they, I mean like Dave and the animation team. It's so incredible every time. And I don't feel like any of these episodes are really rushed either. I mean, maybe in like some like scenes and stuff, you could maybe make the argument that things feel a little bit rushed, but I feel like most of the time it doesn't. So then when y'all hear me complain about Andor's long run times and the fact that they spend 10 minutes just showing the inside of a freaking TIE fighter, it's because it's such a slap in the face to me as a viewer. Like 10 minutes into an Andor episode and I'm barely getting any significant stuff going on because they haven't even gotten out of the opening act. 10 minutes into this Clone Wars episode and the Death Watch has taken over Mandalore. Go enjoy your slop, kids, because now it's time for the nerds to eat. So this episode starts out with Maul going over his plan with his crime families, with the Death Watch, and being like, all right, we're going to use these guys here to attack bases across Centauri and spreading chaos across the planet, right? Then the Death Watch will come in, capture and arrest us, and look like the big heroes. But fortunately, or unfortunately for Maul and Savage, they kind of have that inkling feeling that Vizsla's going to betray them. But Maul points out, we don't have any other choice. We can't rule openly without drawing the attention of the Jedi, so we need Vizsla as the face of our rule for now. And then obviously, as we kind of know from last week's episode as well, right? Like we know that Vizsla and Bo-Katan plan to turn on these guys. So then we get to Mandalore, and the Black Sun and the Pikes, they're wreaking havoc. They're attacking the docks, they're in the middle of the city, they're robbing the bank with the help of Savage. Keep up, you weaklings.
Keep up, you weaklings.
The Duchess Satine has led us to ruin.
Death Watch. Guards, stay back. Vizsla, you must be the one responsible for these attacks.
No, I'm not responsible, but I can offer a solution.
He's trying to be the big savior, right? Like that's the whole point of this, is like make Satine look like she has lost control of things, whereas Vizsla, he's the one who's got the plan, he's the one who's got everything under control, he's got the people chanting for war. So then Death Watch starts taking action and start, saving the quote-unquote the Mandalorian people. This episode actually does hold a lot of real life elements to it. The genius part about this whole thing right now, that what they're doing is exactly what you'll see politicians and other people in the real world doing. They'll create problems that don't actually exist so they can solve them and look like the big heroes. And for Pre Vizsla, the Death Watch, for Maul, that strategy very much worked. So then Vizsla ends up going into the Mandalorian palace with his men, and Satine, I wanted to see her guards go up against the Mandos so bad. Her royal guards or whatever are like such badasses, and we've seen them, fight people in the past. And Vizsla has this great line.
Listen, Duchess. Do you hear the people? They cry out for change. Your weak-minded rule of Mandalore is at an end. The resurrection of our warrior past is about to begin.
Yo, the resurrection of our warrior past is about to begin. That just gives you chills. Bo-Katan explains, Duchess Satine fled. Well, the Death Watch brought these cowards to justice. Pre Vizsla is the new Prime Minister of Mandalore. And I remember looking at the shot of, Vizsla looking down at all the Mandalorian people and them chanting his name and him being in that spot of like now ruling Mandalore. It was kind of one of those like shock moments for me, like back in the day, like, oh my gosh, he actually did it. Because I remember like me and my friends, in school or whatever, like we were pretty big into the Clone Wars and stuff, obviously. I was like, yeah, there's no way that Pre Vizsla's ever going to take over Mandalore. Like, yeah, right. So this was like one of those like, oh my gosh, this dude like actually did it. And not only did he do it, but he did it with the people willingly following him too. That's, I think, the even scarier part about it. It's a scary thing because sometimes it just kind of shows you like how quickly people can kind of be manipulated. The people didn't know. They didn't know that this whole thing was freaking orchestrated. There's already this like new transition of power and Vizsla's the one, now running the ship. So then Vizsla has a chat with Maul and Vizsla's like, look, we've got the support of the people. The transition of power will be seamless. We've got Satine to bait Kenobi. I believe that puts our deal at an end. And Maul goes, whoa, hold on a second. Your oversight requires a little bit of correction. We now have a base, we have an army, and we have the means to expand to other neutral systems. Because remember, that was Maul's big plan at the end of last week's episode, was commanding a new galactic underworld. But Vizsla, he's like, no, this wasn't an oversight. This was intentional. I had no interest in the other systems. Your vision no longer matters. So then the Mandalorians turn on Maul. But Vizsla points out, he's like, don't worry. I'm still going to honor our deal. Kenobi's going to be dealt with, but now you're going to do as I say. So then they bring out Maul in front of the people as like one of the last crime bosses or whatever. We've cleared up the streets of the last of the criminals. Pacifism only encourages violence against us. Like now with this new, thing that we've got going, no one's ever going to threaten us again. And everybody's still chanting, Vizsla, Vizsla. Everyone loves this. How long ago did Mandalore become a pacifist planet, I wonder? I'm sure like in history classes and stuff, like they would have taught about the ways of Mandalore, right? Like the warrior ways. But even I guess like if it was more recently that it became a pacifist planet, then I could definitely see a lot of sympathizers for the Death Watch and for them to rule the planet their way. That's something I think I'll have to look into. So then Maul and Savage are just sitting there in this prison. Mind you, these guys could have broken out at any time, but Maul's got his plans, all right? And he's like, all right, we got to find a leader that will suit our purposes and suit our needs. Apprentice, I wish a tour of this facility. So then Savage breaks him out and he starts taking out, the Mandalorians that are guarding him. Maul's just sitting there like casually walking the whole time, like he's unbothered by everything going on around him. So then they come across Satine, which Maul says, I'll have a use for you in time. Oh boy. Satine, I feel like just played right into Maul's hands, right? Because when Maul asks where the other political candidates are, she's like, oh, well, they've either sided with Vizsla or have been killed. There's no one left but Almec and I, which I guess that was a scene I forgot to talk about. Yeah, when Satine gets put in prison, she's put right next to the former Prime Minister Almec. So I was like, oh my gosh, that's nice. They brought Almec back, a fun little cameo there. Little did I know in that moment that he was going to play an even bigger role in this. But I was like, you know what? As much as I didn't like Almec for everything that he was doing, I did sit there and I'm like, you know what? He'd be the perfect candidate to be like the person that plays as Maul's puppet, as the one that like is the face of their rule. Like it 100% made sense to me. And I was like, okay, yeah, no, I see where they're going with this. So then Maul asks him, what was your position in this government? He's like, I'm the former prime minister. Could you imagine if he had been like, sanitation? Sanitation, written and directed by George Lucas. That one Mandalorian, man, you had your chance to take your shot, and it freaked me out at first. It was a massive jump scare, but then he freaking missed. So then, Savage takes him, force chokes him, and he dies, falling to his death. You gotta do better than that, bro. Almec can see, like, how powerful these guys are, and he's like, okay, well, clearly you guys are powerful, but how can the two of you overthrow Vizsla and his supporters? And Maul points out that, like every soldier, Vizsla's bound by honor. I'm going to challenge him to single combat in front of his men, and he will not deny me. That very much proves to be true. And what Almec says too, right? He's like, well, if you win, according to the ancient laws of Mandalore, which is the new rules that Vizsla and his team would have implemented, his soldiers would be bound by honor to follow him, right? So then they go into that room. Also, the Dave Filoni Mandalorian that was just like, sir, they're attacking. I always get a kick out of that.
Sir, they're attacking!
So then Maul, Savage, and Almec enter the palace, lays out the challenge.
I challenge you, one warrior to another, and only the strongest shall rule Mandalore.
And then we proceed to get, up to this point, the greatest lightsaber battle in this entire show. This fight went on for what, like a good 3.5 to 4 minutes? It's one of the longer duel scenes that we've seen in this show. And this is one of my favorite lightsaber battles of all time. That's how high I regard it. And it's so ironic, too, that they're fighting in the Mandalorian palace, which, you know, for the longest time, you know, we've seen in this show was supposed to be like this peaceful place and stuff. And now it's become this place of war and violence and, you know, Vizsla using all of his gadgets and weapons to try and take down Maul. Freddie Prinze Jr. once dubbed this fight, it was at like a Star Wars Celebration talking about it, and he said that this fight is technology versus discipline. And the discipline has to take the technology apart in order to finally overcome him. And I think that's 100% too. Like when you watch the behind the scenes for this episode, like Dave even talks about like this sword fight was a whole act and Vizsla can't just go down easy. Vizsla has been an established character in this show and he's played a big level of importance when it comes to this Mandalore stuff. And so it was like, okay, you know, we got to make this big. We got to make this epic. And I think they did just that. And it's like the earlier parts of the fight, you can kind of see like it's pretty much back and forth, 50-50. Then Vizsla starts to gain a little bit more control when he starts using his jetpack. He starts throwing bombs everywhere. But then we start to see Maul coming back. You know what I'm saying? He takes out Vizsla's jetpack. He's, you know, trying to get rid of all his weapons. Vizsla, he is literally trying everything that he can in his power to take down Maul. It's like he's transitioning from the darksaber to his blasters to the darts, the flamethrowers, everything. But in the end, it's still not enough. And he cuts off Vizsla's head.
Like you said, only the strongest shall rule.
Now, they very wisely didn't show it. They pan behind Bo-Katan, I'm pretty sure, when the head is getting cut off. But, like, Bo-Katan's sitting there, like, all sad and upset. I'm sitting there in shock, like, oh my gosh, what did we just see? And Maul lays down the law.
I claim this sword, and my rightful place as leader of Death Watch.
Never! No outsider will ever rule Mandalore.
If you will not join me, you will all die.
You're all traitors!
Unfortunately for you, history will not see it that way. Execute them!
I feel like for the rest of this episode, I remember like first time watching it, it was almost like this sort of state of shock that I found myself in. The shock of like, oh my gosh, Darth Maul just killed Pre Vizsla. Then it becomes the shocker of, oh my gosh, he's leading Death Watch now. And he's now the official ruler of Mandalore. It's almost kind of like Scar taking over Pride Rock. And then you have the other added shock value of Bo-Katan being like, no outsider's ever gonna rule Mandalore. And the Mandalorians start fighting against each other. Because Maul says, you know, if you will not join me, you will all die. And it's like all the Mandalorians that bow before Maul stand up and point their weapons at Bo-Katan and the Mandalorians that are now following her. Again, they start this gunfight and stuff. And I'm sitting there like, what are we watching right now? Like, this is incredible. And then it's got to leave the people of Mandalore in confusion because they see the explosions at like the head of the building or whatever, and they see these Mandalorians flying away. It's like, okay, well, what the heck is going on? So then all of a sudden they hear Prime Minister Almec, who I'm sure they would have had to have really been confused then, because wasn't this guy put under arrest? But he makes up this, BS story about, Duchess Satine, the so-called pacifist, has murdered Pre Vizsla. And it was Vizsla's last command that I be reinstated as Prime Minister. No one thought to question that one. Like, that one was a little like, come on, y'all really were falling for this? But in the end, right, it's like Maul gets what he wants. So then Almec goes back to talk with him, and, Maul says, "You have done well, Prime Minister." And Almec's talking about how he's going to waste no time building his administration, which Maul points out, you better choose wisely, though, because I'm going to hold you personally responsible for their failures. Like, is there anything more you require? Like, he's almost become power hungry now, has Almec. Like, he's, like, so happy that he now has this opportunity again. In which Maul tells him, go, rule my people. Can you believe that? His people. This took a turn that I didn't see coming. What a fantastic episode. At the end of this episode, we really get to see Bo-Katan stand out, with like Death Watch being divided, because it was like Dave talked about in the behind the scenes. Bo-Katan believes in Mandalore perhaps more than her own code. It's kind of ironic because it felt like in Vizsla's last moments, like he kind of accepted his fate. Like, yeah, no, I lost. He was the better man. Like, only the strongest shall rule. That's our code. But Bo-Katan wasn't gonna accept it. Because what she looks at here, it's like, no, you're an outsider. You're not from Mandalore. You're not one of us. You shouldn't be ruling us. And I think you can kind of see it from both perspectives, right? Both from the Mandalorians that choose to follow Maul based on that code that they have, but also on Bo-Katan's side of things with the morale of like, well, wait a second, this isn't right. And I said last week as well, like, man, I was rooting for this alliance and stuff. And then like toward the end, I'm like, okay, now I am kind of pushing more for Bo-Katan again. Cause like I said, I've always kind of been pro light side, and like, I wouldn't even necessarily call Bo-Katan, like if we're looking right, like Maul's side is obviously the bad side. Bo-Katan, I don't even know if I'd necessarily call her, quote unquote good, but I think like her morals would more line up with the light side of the Force and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, you guys, I believe that is going to wrap us up for today. I mean, listen, I said before that Maul and Vizsla is the best fight in this show. I will add to that right now. The Maul versus Vizsla fight is the best fight in the show so far, ... until the next episode. Next week, you guys, there's not going to be an episode of the Clone Wars Retro Discussion, so in 2 weeks' time, we are going to discuss Season 5, Episode 16, The Lawless. Thank you all so much for watching. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this video with others to help support the channel, click the hype button, and I will see you guys next time.
Master.
I am most impressed to see you have survived your injuries.
I used your training, Master, and I have built all this in hopes of returning to your side.
How unfortunate that you are attempting to deceive me.
Master?
You have become a rival!